Karens for Kamala? I don't know.
And you will be desperate to talk to some kind of manager, and there will not be one, which honestly is still really a struggle for me.
Thank you. I feel like we all just went to collective therapy. That was so beautiful, and we needed that so much.
I watched the full 2.5-hour White Women for Kamala Zoom call so you don't have to. And just kill me. Hey guys, I'm Brad Polumbo, and welcome back to the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my podcast where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and across our politics from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and sticking around, and regardless, don't forget to hit that like button as we go along, and do comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments, and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. Like I mentioned at the top, we're gonna break down highlights, or I guess I should say lowlights, from the more than 100,000 white women that joined a Zoom call to support Kamala Harris a couple of days ago, and have basically broken the internet with new levels of cringe. Plus, in our Brad vs. TikTok segment, we'll react to a TikToker boasting about how much she gets in welfare. Now, without further ado, let's talk about white women for Kamala. So I'm not sure how the hell this interesting idea got started, but it happened a few days ago. I watched the whole thing. It is posted on YouTube. A bunch of white women, including celebrities and actresses and political organizers, got together and had a Zoom call with over 100,000 participants, all of whom are white women, getting together as a collective identity group to back Kamala and talk about how to use their privilege or something. Watching this, guys, was brutal. It killed me. It was painful. The levels of cringe and absurdity and pandering and self-flagellation were just off the charts. Here's a little cringe compilation I made for you guys.
Karens for Kamala? I don't know.
You will wonder who is in charge, and you will be desperate to talk to some kind of manager, and there will not be one, which honestly is still really a struggle for me.
As white women, we are the ones that have the privilege, of course.
As a way to decenter the Eurocentric and white voices that are often at the forefront of our history books and our media.
I am here tonight embracing myself in your incredible, profound white women midst.
Thank you. I feel like we all just went to collective therapy. That was so beautiful, and we needed that so much.
Now, I want to talk about the substance of the ideas and arguments that were made on this call. And one of the early speakers, a woman who I believe is a poet named Andrea Gibson, she had some interesting things to say that I want to unpack. Take a listen.
And this tonight, as you all know, is a gathering of people with white privilege discussing what we are going to do, what we are going to use our privilege for, how we are going to show up, what vital changes are we going to make to transform our world for the better. One of the most committed activists in my life says that we can only go where we have first gone in our hearts and minds, meaning we have to first be able to imagine something if we are ever going to create it. Tonight, I invite us to put active effort into that imagining, because in this political climate, it is really easy to know what we're against, but it is so vital right now for each of us to know what we are for. What we are for is such an expansive, creative, and empowering conversation. We know that Trump policies do not impact white women the way they do people of color. It's crucial that we acknowledge that many of us would not fear for our lives under 4 more years of Trump to the extent that others would. But as we acknowledge that, I also invite us to go much deeper to the core of our nature until we can feel that our lifelines are braided with the veins of every living person, until we can really feel that separateness is a myth, a lie manufactured by a patriarchal, capitalist, white supremacist machine, a lie that the Trump administration thrives on.
So there's a lot there. I mean, the irony is not lost on me of Giving a speech in which you say that separateness is a myth to a group that you have segregated by race and gender. Like, I actually do believe that all human beings are individuals first and foremost, and that most of these divisions and identity groups are meaningless, or at least they should be meaningless. But y'all don't. Y'all are explicitly dividing your people up by race and gender and segregating them, while telling us that separateness is a myth? The math isn't mathing, babe. Neither is this demented fear-mongering about how people of color need to fear for their lives in a second Trump administration. Excuse me? I've never been a Trump supporter, but I did live through his first term, and I remember tax cuts, I remember criminal justice reform, I remember some unhinged tweeting. I don't remember the part where people of color were killed, but that just must be me and my white privilege or something. I was also interested to hear her connect this all to the capitalist system or something, which is very interesting because this is not an official Kamala campaign event, but I doubt that Kamala Harris would at least openly want her presidential campaign tied to anti-capitalism, to tearing down the capitalist economic system that has made our country so prosperous. Anyway, this event began as it meant to go on, as this early speaker really was just setting the tone for much of what would follow. And what would Democratic organizing these days be without some unhinged fear-mongering about Project 2025? The Heritage Foundation plan that I covered in a recent episode. Take a listen to another clip.
So there you have it. They're going to take our rights and freedoms. They're going to gut the agencies and programs we depend on to live good lives. They're going to give money to rich and corporations, and they're going to hand Donald Trump unprecedented power. They've got a vision of the world where white men are on top, rich white men are on top, and all the rest of us are under their control. They wrote it all down and they put it on the internet.
So there's a lot to unpack here. First and foremost, it's just really disingenuous, the fear-mongering about Project 2025 throughout this 2.5-hour Zoom call of all these white liberal ladies, because over and over again they suggested that this was Trump's agenda, this is what he's going to do to us. But Trump has repeatedly distanced himself and pretty vociferously condemned the plan. I went over it in detail, and parts of it I think make sense, parts of it I think are pretty radical and pretty crazy in another episode that you guys should check out if you haven't yet. I'll link it in the description. But to frame Project 2025, this ultra-conservative agenda, as simply being about restoring a world where white men control everyone is a total straw man. It is completely disingenuous and dishonest. You're actually trying to argue that deep ideological and policy differences and ideas really just come down to the other side are all evil bad men who want to control everyone and put white men back on top, and we're the good people who want equality and freedom and fairness. Like, no, it's not that simple, actually. And if you think it is, it's because you're not actually thinking deeply. You're not actually listening to anyone who disagrees with you ever, and you exist in a deep, deep echo chamber like this Zoom call. Up next, I want to play for you the most maddening part of the Zoom call, which was when an influencer named Ariel Fodor, I believe is how you would say her name, spoke and gave perhaps the most infantilizing and paternalizing remarks of the entire 2.5 hours.
Don't make it about yourself. As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized, and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn. So do check your blind spots. You are responsible for your algorithm, believe it or not. Intentionally seek out and share content from BIPOC creators, activists, thought leaders. They should be the leaders of conversations about race and justice and equity. So just whatever you do, don't stay silent on issues of injustice. Big changes can start with just one person who's brave enough to speak up. But do know when to walk away from an argument for your own sake.
Honestly, I wanted to puke listening to this. It's so patronizing and so condescending. You just told 100,000 grown adult women, many who are grandmothers, to put their listening ears on. Ugh. Kill me. You're treating them like they're toddlers or children. And the message here is so incoherent. Take the lead and use your privilege to make change. But also step back, let BIPOC, which of course is a fake and absurd acronym. There's not a human being in the world who is a BIPOC. Let them take the lead and lead these charges and uplift BIPOC creators. It's actually crazy and not at all progressive to suggest that who should be listened to or who should lead conversations should not be based upon knowledge or competence or eloquence, but skin pigment. And something tells me this wouldn't apply to BIPOC who happen to be conservative or Republican or even just moderate and critical of some of this woke stuff. Are you going to listen to Candace Owens? Are you going to be uplifting her as a BIPOC creator? For some reason, I doubt that. Now, of course, we have to get to the most serious issue with this entire Zoom presentation. Zero trans women or non-binary women spoke at this event. That is, of course, a deeply transphobic microaggression and unacceptable, and just another example of white women talking over queer, two-spirit, non-binary, and transgender women. Oh my god, I can't even take myself seriously when I try to play along. I just can't, sorry. This whole thing is just peak cringe. It is fundamentally reductionist, reducing women as if they all have one way that they need to think, stripping them of their individuality and collectivizing a diverse group of people who, outside of some biological consistencies, don't have all that much in common. It's also incredibly paternalizing to those women, talking down to them and treating them like they're children, and also kind of in a weird way doing the same thing to minorities. I mean, at one point they're suggesting that BIPOC women should let white women use their privilege and take the lead to do things like get permits for events and rallies and such because they know how to do that. Like, babe, black people are actually capable of filling out paperwork. It's giving white savior. All of this. It's giving pick me. I'm one of the good white people. I'm not one of those bad ones. And it's so flattening in its view of the world, as if all white people have white privilege. Now, most of the people on this call are probably incredibly privileged because they all seem rich as to be honest, with the amount of money they were just casually dropping in donations. 5K, 10K, 50K, matching 50K, matching 100K. It was wild. But again, not necessarily privileged because they're white, privileged because they're rich coastal elites. In reality, a person's level of privilege is determined by thousands of factors, and you can't assume that there's any universal white experience or level of privilege that any given white person experiences. It's a flattening worldview that ignores the nuances of our individuality and our life experiences. And I'm sorry, but I just point blank think that this kind of a racial balkanization is not good. We don't need white identity groups or white affinity groups. We don't need race-based political organizing. This is not progress. This is taking us further away from the kind of vision of the world that Martin Luther King dreamed of. And I just have to say, the credulity and fanfare with which this kind of thing is treated by mainstream media, it's just applauded and cheered on, would not be quite the same if they were getting together and doing Whites for Trump events. Something tells me that CNN wouldn't be praising this kind of thing. They'd be saying it was racial identitarianism, it was white supremacy, it was divisive, it was hateful, it was bigoted. And you know what? They would be right. But it has to go both ways. It can't just be okay when it's one political side that does it. Now, some critics have pointed out that there are things like Blacks for Trump or Gays for Trump. And to be honest, I have always found those movements cringe. And I really don't think we need to do Republican identity politics. However, it is different. Gay people is an actual category, right? It's an actual demographic group that has something tangible in common, and they're specifically organizing to do outreach to a community that doesn't typically vote for Republicans or get exposed to those ideas. Something similar could be said for Black people. White is not really a meaningful category. There's nothing that white people have in common. There's no white culture. There are no white communities. There's actually tons of different kinds of communities within that. And white identitarianism and white collectivism has an ugly and dark history in this country. It's something we should be trying to move away from, not bring back, slap a rainbow on it with a BLM fist and call it woke. That's just my take on this insane development. And they're also doing a White Men for Kamala call tonight, actually, which I will be tuning into and maybe covering. If you made it this far, you need to take a second and like this video and subscribe if you haven't yet to reward my suffering, because I'm genuinely slowly torturing myself going through this shit and bringing to you the highlights and lowlights. Like, this is not fun for me. So the least you can do is reward my suffering with a like. All right, now it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slugs.
Today, this woman is openly bragging about how much she gets in welfare and food stamps because she has 7 different kids with 7 different baby daddies. Let's take a look.
Okay, you guys, yes, I am a mother of 7 kids. 7 kids. I had my first child at 14 years old. Yes, I had my first child at 14 years old. I do not regret it. He is well, healthy, and he's 19 right now. God, praise God. Yes, you guys, I have 7 kids, 7 different baby daddies. Yeah, 7 different baby daddies. I heard it. You heard it right here. 7 different baby daddies, 7 kids. Had my first child at age 14. Yes, and I do receive 3,000 in EBT food stamps. Yes. We are so happy. We are so blessed. We are very thankful. Yes, we are happy where we're at in life right now. We are happy. Yes, we are happy. Yes. Like I said, it's gonna be haters, people gonna be jealous and all that. Y'all can keep y'all little comments, but at the end of the day, my kids are taken care of. That all that matters, okay? That's it. That's all that matters. We ain't worried about y'all. Peace.
Y'all, the things that people will go on the internet and say with their full chest in 2024 without a hint of shame in their voice genuinely astounds me. Even the TikTok comments were almost exclusively against her. Doesn't make it right to live off our tax money. Try working like the rest of us. So we're all your baby daddies. American people wish you would get off your lazy butt and start earning your way and have the baby daddy pay for their kids. Another person wrote, this isn't a flex at all. Another person said, I'm glad your kids are taken care of. I'm a mother too who pays $900 in taxes a month alone. I'd like to be able to give my child siblings, but unfortunately I can't afford more kids. Another person says, have you ever heard of birth control or condoms? Now, part of the reason that people get so mad about this is that she also posts herself getting her kids 60-inch flat screen TVs and herself completing a college degree. And so it's not like she's balancing her budget, scrimping to get by, working hard, and still just needs extra help from the system to take care of her kids. She's pretty clearly exploiting the system and just milking her neighbors and leeching off of them instead of actually paying her own way in life and taking care of her own kids. That's what I want to know too, is like, where are these men at? Why aren't they taking care of their children? Why aren't they paying child support? Why aren't they working? But also, how does somebody end up having 7 kids with 7 different men, unless you're doing that on purpose, which I don't know why anyone would. I can understand 1 or 2. I'll never be in the position of an unwanted pregnancy. I can have a lot of sympathy for people who end up in that situation, but 7 times, babe? Clearly, you're doing something wrong. You're making some bad choices. And it's frustrating because, like some of the people in the comments said, a lot of people would like to have extra kids or additional children, but they know they can't afford it, so they do the responsible thing and they don't. Then you have other people just having way more kids than they can afford to take care of and just expecting everyone else to pick up the slack. And of course, I'm somebody who believes in a basic social safety net for the truly disabled and people who truly can't take care of themselves. But that can extend to people who just don't want to, who just want to live at the expense of everyone else. That's why we need things like work requirements attached to these kinds of programs. And also, many of her videos show her buying her kids with these food stamps just the most unhealthy food imaginable. Shouldn't there be some kind of restrictions? I mean, I'm not one to have the government micromanage things, but like, what use is there for food stamps being allowed to be used to purchase soda so people can have health problems that then taxpayers will get to pay for too? It's all just such a hot mess. But it brings me back to a pretty common theme that I see on TikTok, which is just that society has gone too far away in the other direction when it comes to shame. You know, for so long we had all these stigmas, we constantly were shaming and judging people for reasons that they shouldn't be shamed and judged. But now it's like there's no shame about anything. There's no judgment whatsoever. Clearly, there needs to be at least a little bit. I don't know. You let me know what you think in the comments below. Or are you just okay with your tax money being used like this? And now I'll read a few of your comments from the last episode before we wrap up today's show. One person writes, I'm a Navy veteran. For 10 years, I obeyed my oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And when I watch people burn the flag of the USA, you know what I think? I think those people are assholes, but I'm proud that I serve my nation so that assholes can express their beliefs by burning the very symbol of our country. The very essence of an asshole burning our flag without consequences is the very proof that we are a free people of a free nation, the greatest nation in the history of humanity. I completely agree, and thank you so much for your service. Another person says, it's pretty rich that a Catholic man from a religious tradition that promotes abstinence in priests and nuns says that childless people aren't fit for leadership. Make it make sense. He says a lot of things I agree with, but this is not one of them. This is, of course, about J.D. Vance and his comments that people without kids shouldn't wield political power because they don't care about the long-term interests of society. And I hadn't actually thought of that angle, but it is an interesting one. Another person says, I pray you continue to point out when our side does something unconstitutional/crazy. The right shouldn't be above being checked too at times, and I struggle to find left-leaning media I trust to point it out. Yeah, I will continue to do it. It's hard though, because whenever I criticize the right, I do lose subscribers. The videos don't perform as well. And so if I was just trying to grow my channel, I would just shut up about it. But it's more important to me to be honest about this stuff than it is to just get big and make tons of money or get tons of views or whatever. Another person says, no video about Sonia Massey? No, I mean, that's just not really the kind of thing that I cover, and I don't have a ton to say about it, but I think what happened to her is terrible, and I would very much like to see those police held legally accountable for what they did to her. Another person says, I truly believe the white men bad, black woman good girl is doing satire. It's too over the top to be real. I actually looked into her account because I wasn't sure if it was satire. It isn't. It's not satire. She really is woke. It might be rage bait though. She might be intentionally being as ridiculous as possible with her opinion to trigger people like us. And congrats, I guess, it kind of worked. All right, everybody, that is it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, yada, 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 and we'll talk again tomorrow.